All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk with your girl, Miss Sasha. I am the host of Real Reading Talk. And with Real Reading Talk, it basically, the idea came up in my head a few years ago to start a podcast in which I wanted to talk about the daunting statistics that a lot of times that we are inundated with when it comes to Black children in literacy. You know, when you hear statistics like there are only 17% of Black children that are proficient in reading nationally, those types of statistics are just, they should be ugly for us to listen to or for us to even read about. Or that, and especially here in my hometown of Cleveland, where you hear statistics like 66% of the population are the adults are functionally illiterate. Functionally illiterate. What does that mean? That means they can barely read on a third or fourth grade level. So that means when it comes to things like filling out an application, okay, for, a job, or, even an application if somebody wanted to start their own business, to get an LLC or something like that, you have to be literate in order to do those things. And so the thing is that when we hear these statistics, a lot of times people don't like to put them in proper context. They like to start the story in the middle. That's what I noticed. So it's almost like, yeah, those, poor Black kids or those poor Black people, they're not reading, and, oh my goodness, they're always struggling when it comes to reading, and, their reading scores are low. And then here comes the nonprofits, out the wazoo, everybody trying to help the Black community when it comes to literacy. But then you have to ask yourself, well, how do we get here? Okay, so how do we get to this place? So that's when I came up with Real Reading Talk, because I said we need to get to the nitty gritty. We need to get to, without sugarcoating anything, and talking about the systemic issues when it comes to Black people and having low levels of literacy, and how even just the culture of literacy, is something that has been low in the Black community. And so with that being said, I definitely wanted to invite, people in the community, who have been doing great things when it comes to literacy. You have people who, are authors, and, people who are reading tutors I've had on my show before. And this particular episode, I have an awesome author, cosmetologist, teacher, okay, mentor. Yeah, I'm putting it out. She's all of that. All right, inspirer. Okay. And I asked her to come on to the show, and she happily obliged. And I was just like, all just giddy and just so excited. So I would love to welcome to the show Miss LaDosha Wright. Welcome.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I like that. Mentor, homegirl. Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
That's me. I'm like your favorite cousin.
Hey, that's right. And that's the vibe, and really for real, that's the vibe I get from you. You're just so relatable, so down to earth,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'm not saying that you should act stuffy because you've done all these great things, but you have people who've done a lot of great things like you, and they kind of, act a little bit like you can't really talk to them and
Yeah.
stuff.
You can't reach out and touch someone. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
come on now, especially with Black folks, we come from the and I forgot the professor who termed it. I'm gonna use a big word now, axiology. We come from the
Oh,
relationship axiology. So
yeah.
we're big on relationships. We're big
Yeah.
on connecting with each other. And that's something that's part of our African ancestry. So it's like,
Okay.
when somebody is being, real and authentic. A lot of times, Black folks, a lot of times we got that intuition. We can tell if somebody is being real or somebody kind of being a little fake. And
Yeah. Are they represent?
okay,
Are they really represent?
are they really representing, right? And so,
Yes.
and that's the vibe I get from you. And so I was like, I really am looking forward to our conversation. But of course, as always, when you have a guest on, people want to know about you. They want to know your history, where you come from, and what you do, all that good stuff. So let
Right.
give it
Right.
to us.
All right. So I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I was just born there, and so my parents stayed there for a little bit. And then I just was born and raised right here in Cleveland, Ohio, in the hood, right down the way in ye old King Kennedy. So my grandparents lived off 55th, and then we just, was brought up from in the projects. And then, typical of most parents, they want to take their families, out of the projects and move into, a more upscale community.
Mhm.
And so we moved up on the borderline of Shaker Heights. And so that's pretty much, I just, I'm from the hood, that's where I was born and pretty much raised. So I'm proud of it and a proud graduate of Cleveland Public Schools. So, yeah, so I love my roots. I love Cleveland.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh my goodness. I have to make a quick connection to you and my last guest I had, Ebony Donnelly. She said the same thing. She said how, she went to Cleveland Public Schools and was proud of her roots. And I just, soon as you said that, that triggered that. I was like,
Yeah,
wow,
people
man.
say, "Oh, public education, it's not good. It's not."
Mhm.
No, no, I'm not. I'm not going to subscribe to that. Public education is excellent.
I hear you. I hear you. And you know what? I'm gonna go even a little further. I'm gonna say, just like I tell my kids, for real, education happens any and everywhere. Just like
I
right now,
say,
what we doing, we are helping to, educate the people. You are telling them about, yourself and the different things that you do and how you're helping our community. And like I said, by me trying to help provide this platform so we could talk about these issues and not only just talk about them though, I'm about solutions. And I know
yes.
you're about solutions as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. For real. So, and I love that. And so now what I want to ask you is tell everybody what is it that you do?
So what I do in I always say when I turn to the left, I am a full-time salon owner and licensed cosmetologist at the Revers Design Team located in Cleveland Heights. But then when I turn to the right, I am a full-time author. So I write books, and so that's all I do is hair and write.
Oh, I love it. Oh my
Yes,
goodness, man. This conversation. Hey, y'all, I hope y'all listening and taking notes. Okay, not just listening, but taking notes. Have your notepad and your pen because I'm about to ask Miss LaDosha some questions when it comes to her background in terms of literacy and all of that stuff. And I want you guys to pay attention because it's obvious that she comes from a history of literacy, especially getting into becoming an author. I mean, that right
yes,
there is like, that is so awesome to hear.
yes.
So, with that being said, now I need to find out about how was it that you were raised when it came to literacy? What was reading like in your home?
Well, I am proud to say that I come from a home of uh, where reading was fun and mental, not fundamental, but it was fun and mental. So my mom, we just read, and we didn't just read books. So I recall doing a presentation at a junior high school last year, as a matter of fact. And so the children in the class was telling me just how much they hated reading. And I said, I remember hating reading too as a kid, but I didn't realize how much I was really reading until I realized I was reading the directions. I was reading stop signs. I was reading store signs. I was reading the Barbie doll. And who can forget a box of cereal? You could not eat that cereal without what? Reading. And so my mom was very, creative in letting me know just how much I love to read. And so that little reverse psychology, particularly the cereal box. So the cereal box, the tricks, the King vitamin, the rice puffs, because we didn't have like tricks was like a treat. So we had corn flakes, King vitamin rice puffs, occasionally sugar crisp, sugar bear, and then we had tricks. And so we, in order to, eat our cereal, we had to read the box. We just wanted to eat. And so that's really was my first love of reading, came from reading cereal boxes.
That is like, girl, see,
That's
that,
hood. If
that
you from
that
the
genius.
hood, you can
Oh man,
represent. I'm just saying,
you are
when
like,
you,
oh my goodness, come on, how that's so what's up. And see,
it's
you are,
real.
look at you. See, you taking our interview all the way some questions down the line when I start asking about solutions. You've just given a solution right there. Did everybody? I hope y'all wrote that down. Okay. Trick your kids into believing that, hey, look, you don't hate reading. You're reading cereal boxes. You're reading directions. You're reading
Hmm.
the
Street
signs out,
signs,
exactly. Stop sign.
Christmas cards. You're writing Christmas lists out, what you want for
Exactly.
Christmas. You're looking in
Yes.
the Sears catalog.
Yup.
So I mean, they don't have that stuff anymore, but we were in fact reading.
Yes.
And
Oh
so
my goodness.
my mother was a reader, so she definitely, set the example for
Mhm.
sure. But it was not something that we just, I woke up like this. No, I didn't. I'm gonna keep it 100. It wasn't. But once I got into it, oh, then there was no turning back. But that was the turning point. My mother, pointed out to all of us, not just me, but my siblings, that we were in fact avid readers.
I love that. And see, and I like that. I like how you use that descriptive word avid. All right. Meaning
Mhm.
that you all read a lot.
A
And
lot.
that is something that I definitely am trying to help develop, in the Black community, develop that
Yeah.
critical literacy, because as we know, and I'm just to let you know, I did again, learn about your library that you started, but I'm gonna have you tell
Yeah.
everybody about it.
Okay.
But
All right. Okay.
what made me think about it in terms of how we need to start telling our children that we come from a history of literate people.
Yes.
Okay. We
Yeah.
come from, so we talk about the libraries in Timbuktu, Alexandria, Egypt, Cordoba, Spain. These are, you're talking about, these are Black folks, the Moors,
Right.
who in Spain, they had the massive library.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? See, these are things that our children, a lot of times they don't, you have a lot of adults who don't know that, don't know that history,
That's true.
and so a lot
But
of
thanks to people like, yes, yeah, and thanks to people like you for hosting these podcasts. This is, to me, is what ignites and excites, and it sparks an interest, because it just takes someone like you to be what we used to say when I was an outreach worker, on the pulse of the people. So
times.
when you're on the pulse of the people, we complain about social media, but we can use this to bridge the gap, just like that cereal box.
Mhm.
So it seemed like it's not really significant. Cereal boxes don't play a role. Oh yes, they do. Cereal boxes play a very big role. I remember playing that. That's my car. That's my car. When you say that's my car, you had to shout out the license plate sometime, and they would
Mm.
have like wordings on it. So you had to be able to, read. That's my car. Was it a Ford? Was it a Caprice Classic?
Oh,
Was it a Mercedes? So in order to call the car, you couldn't just always look at the car. Sometimes you had to cheat and read,
mm.
the name of the car. So even that game was a way. So this platform here, it seems like it's very trivial, but this is a wonderful way to engage people into the beauty and the history of literacy, especially for all of us of the African diaspora.
I mean, I appreciate that. I thank you so much again for that. That's awesome. Really, really, I do. And I want to ask you something though.
Mhm.
Why is it that our kids hate reading?
You know, um, in my personal and professional opinion, I children do not hate reading. I think what children love is being told that what they are reading is enough. I think to allude to a child that if you're just, reading the cereal box, or if you're just, on social media, I mean, it's all reading. Now, to me, and this is, I'm kind of stealing this a little bit from Dr. Booker T. Coleman, also known as Caminente. So Hiawatha
I know you.
Caminente. So what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? I had to get that right because I can't mess him up. So what he said is that anytime someone makes those type of statements, he wants them to take a. He keeps a mirror in his pocket. and I keep one in as well. And you look at the mirror because that speaks to you. So if the children are not reading, what is that saying about the people who are in the children's lives? So I, like I said, I travel around the city, and now I can say the world, and I talk to children about reading. And it's not that children hate reading. Children aren't often, praised for what they read, when they read, and to find a way to, find a segue, into more reading. And I can recall at this school where the kids told me that they hated, reading, and they hated books. And I said, well, you need to write a book about people who hate books. And you know what they did? They wrote a book about it. And so, but during that presentation, I would say 90% of the children was like they hated reading. But by the time I got finished with them, they had concluded that they were all going to write exactly what they hated about reading, and that's what they did. So I don't think children hate reading. I think that we are not on the pulse of what children like to read. I think more children like to read, more like to write as much as they like to read, but they're not encouraged to write because of maybe what's going to come out on the piece of paper. And I've been to many, many, many presentations. And one child divulged that she was basically forced to, strip. All of this came out in her writing. And so some of this is not something that people, but she did it in the guise of a poem, and it was deep. It was deep, deep, deep.
Oh,
And so I think that these are some of the things that adults may not. I mean, look at what's happening right now when they wanted to tear down, all those well, they didn't want to, they were tearing them down. Why? Because in the infamous words of one of the most renowned African historians, Robin Walker, history is relevant. So a lot of this stuff is not relevant to the children. And to me, as adults, or caretakers, we have to take this reading and do all the mighty things that reading and writing is capable of doing. And putting it in a book ain't always the only way that kids and can read. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it isn't.
wow. You said a whole bunch, you dropped a whole bunch of nuggets, first of all. And I'm just going to just do a recap because this is going to make a segue into my next question. Just for example, when you, because it made me think about the quote by Toni Morrison when she said that with it, if there's a book that you, or I'm paraphrasing, if there's a book
Right.
that you cannot find that you would like to read, then you basically go write your own book. Okay, so
Yeah.
that was in paraphrasing her quote. Y'all, please go look it up. Toni Morrison, type in, she said, write your own book so you can get the full quote. But she
Right.
basically, you said, you know, what she said, in terms of if there are books out there that, that you are finding that are not to your liking, then you need to get you a notebook and start writing your own story. And then
Hmm.
also how you talked about in terms of our kids are not seeing the different books or different things that they can relate to, and that definitely is so true. What's so crazy is that now there's tons of research out there. You have a lot of, educators, so-called educators, who are, in front of our kids, and they're like, they know this research, they've heard about it in terms of a lot of them, in terms of kids need to see themselves represented in the books. Okay, those
Right.
are ways in which will get a child to want to read. And for whatever strange reason, you go in a lot of these schools, you still will see in the school libraries or even definitely in the school classrooms, books that represent white children a lot of times.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or even just like today. Today is the murderers day. Okay, so we say, and I know for myself, I like to say, Indigenous Peoples Day. Okay,
Right.
but you got
Yeah.
folks who still are teaching to our kids in 2020 that Christopher Columbus discovered America. And it's like, are you serious? This murderer, this
Yeah.
rapist, he's still being honored. And then
Yeah.
not only that, it ain't even true.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's
So
true.
it's
Yeah.
like So those types of things are still, being, taught to our children. And again, like I said, our kids are not seeing themselves represented, in the books. And one other thing I like how you said is that we don't always have to have them put things in a book. Just like how you said with the young lady, she started, writing about, things that she had to do or whatever in a negative aspect, but she's writing this down, getting that off her chest, getting
Yeah,
that off her heart, what I'm saying, putting it on the paper. And that right there, that is, and the thing is that reading and writing, they're related. They're sisters. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's like
yeah,
those who read a lot usually tend to become great writers, and those who, are writing, they're usually reading a lot.
yeah.
So
And we are not taught African history.
mm,
So so African history is not being taught at all. So therefore, our children do not have the full scale, the totality of thought, you know, and then to word and then to writing. So if they knew the history of how we spoke things into existence, that who hekasia, they don't know anything about our ancient ancestors and what they brought and how we were the greatest storytellers on the planet. As a matter of fact, all of the stories that we hear now that are used in many, many, many religious doctrines and medicines and all of this stuff came from African people who were everyday people like you and I. And I'm not limiting this to, Imhotep, but so many others, Queen Time, Queen Hatshepsut. I mean, these histories are beyond what the Ninja Turtles and, Dora the Explorer, those are great books. But if you have some of this history, the ISIS, well, that would fascinate any child's imagination, but we're not given, that history or so it's just those types of things that we're not admitting that this is suppressing, and it's also giving off this bad notion that we don't like to read. Of course, we like to read. Of course, we like to write. But is it relevant? That's the question.
that's the question. That's the question. And just like I'm gonna show you this book right here, this brother here, Dr. Alfred Tatum, and this is one of his books he wrote, Teaching Reading to Black Adolescent Males, Closing the Achievement Gap. And one of the things that he talked about was relevancy. And he
Yes.
talked, and he gave a story in there of how about, how he came to school and he had a curl, of course, Cosby, the curl,
Yeah.
okay, he had the curl. And then his teacher, noticed, like changed his hair. I guess he went from the afro to the, had the curly, little drippy drip. And so basically the teacher was like, what made you change? You know what I'm saying? Your hair. And so, he basically gave whatever spiel he gave about that. Then the teacher had gave him the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, and was like, read this. And this is a story he talks about in here that happened to him. And he said, and that was one of the catalysts that made him started really appreciating his history and who he is. Because for those who are not familiar, of course, in the autobiography of Malcolm X, he
Yeah.
talks about how he had the conch, and at one time, and he was red back in the day,
Right. Yeah.
you know. And
Right.
so, and of course, for those who listen to his speeches, how he talks about that is a form, and I know you're cosmetology, so I ain't trying to go
Oh,
there,
no, no, no,
but
no, no. Yeah.
but you understand what I'm saying. He's just saying, hey,
Yes.
look, we got to pay attention to that. Why is it that we feel like our natural hair texture is something to be ashamed of, or we feel like we've
Mhm.
arrived when we've done something where we put a curl kit or got a hair straightener. So as we know, our brother Malcolm X, what I'm saying, talked about that. And I thought that was, again, just referencing to connect what you said in terms of relevancy. That's what Dr. Alfred Tatum was saying. Like, hey, the teacher was trying to say, hey, look, be proud of
Yeah,
your.
yeah. The people don't. I mean, even Malcolm X and all his eloquence, he too was denied African history
Yes.
because a lot of African people, particularly those of I can't speak to any other Africans in other parts of the world because I'm from America, but a lot of us don't even know that Africans have been altering hair before Christ. So, though conking was not the term, or straightening combs and quick weaves and all that stuff, those were not the terminologies. But we've been altering hair textures, but we were not given the history that we were altering it. So when we saw Marcus Garvey and a lot of those of the RBG, movement, they were not aware that, Africans have been altering their hair. Egyptians invented blue, that blue dye. That's not a natural hair color. So we don't know that. We will say things like, if you alter your hair, you're trying to be something other than, African or Black. When in fact, we have a rich, 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 rich history that we have altered hair, and we would, shave the hair of the people we captured and put it on our head to tease them. And so this is what we did as African people. But if we don't know that history, we will say things, we will accuse other people of cultural appropriation, of trying not to be, Black, or ashamed. Not to say that it does not exist, but for the most part, it's just in our DNA to alter that fabric, because that's just what Africans did.
Hmm.
And there's
Wow.
history, written in the Medinetter, that proves this to be true. Like I said, before Christ, and Imhotep, it's on all the Edwin papyrus. They even stole the stele, and changed the name to the Edwin Smith papyrus. And but these are the documents where these are the steles that captured this history of Africans altering their hair with all types of things, from urine to, plants to boo boo. You'd be surprised what they was doing to alter this hair. So altering hair is not anything new, nor is it anything to be ashamed of. But this is why these platforms are important, because now hopefully someone will be on here like, what you talking about, Dosha? What book is that in? Where can I find that? How can I find the Edwin Smith papyrus? And, what's the Medinetter? What are the hieroglyphs? So this is how people start to want to go and start to peep, and go and do their own research, and stop some of this lookership, and find the truth for themselves.
That's right. Oh my God. That you just gave a whole mouthful. I mean, and you again, like you said, you ignited in me. Now I have to go do more research, because this right here, this is my first time hearing something like this. I mean, and again, of course, just in the context of, I understand what you're saying, but I definitely have always understood the aspect of what Malcolm X, and of
Oh
course,
yes,
our
yes,
other scholars have always talked about, in terms of the whole self-hatred aspect, in the
yes,
Black community, you know what I
yes,
mean? And looking at
yes.
ourselves as, oh, we're not good enough. Our hair is not good enough.
Right.
Skin color is not good enough. And,
And
all
that,
of
yeah, all that comes from erasing history. And this is why your point of literacy and reading,
yeah,
if those books aren't there, if they don't have access to those journals, those books, those researchers, yeah, I wouldn't want to just keep reading about Christopher Columbus either. And to know that it exists and no one is pushing that they get it. The young lady who wrote the 1619 Act, now the states want to adopt this and make this part of the curriculum, but you have number 45 who's accusing her teachings and her research and her writing. This woman won a Nobel Peace Prize. And so he's saying that that was quote, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but reverse racism. Dude, you will probably raise the level of literacy when you start to bring this type of stuff into play, because like you said, you can't start these statistics in the middle. There has to be a start. So we're going to start, or we're going to, and maybe blame isn't a good word, but it's the truth. But we can blame this literacy problem on the people who control the literacy. It's
and
just no other way to say it.
that's right. And
No
really,
other
and
way to
again,
say it.
going back to, that's why this is called Real Reading Talk, because we're letting it out all on the table. All right. For those of you who just joined us, this is Real Reading Talk, and I'm your host, Miss Sasha. And I have the wonderful, awesome guest, Miss LaDosha Wright, cosmetologist. She's a professor, teacher. She's an author, mentor, an inspirer, all of those great things. And just to your point, it's so interesting that you brought her up, because I literally have been watching a lot of videos, a lot of her interviews, and she's been talking about the 1619 project, and what made her started and all of that type of stuff. And the crux of it is white supremacy, institutionalized racism. And that's something
Yeah.
that I'm glad now that we are hearing it being called that, like it should be called. We're calling it out, because there was a time, even amongst Black folks, people would kind of be afraid to really say exactly what it was. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, oh, there's some racism, but as long as you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, as long as you know what I'm saying, you go and do this and do that. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But what if you have a community that does not have the resources? Or not
Mm-hmm.
only that, when we're reading these history books now, you have folks taking pictures of their kids read history books where it's saying that African people, Black folks in this country, our ancestors were immigrants. And so we already know, we're looking like, okay, immigrants. Wait, hold on. You talking about, our ancestors who were, snatched out of Africa, to build up America,
Right.
and
Right.
just like how, the sister Nicole Hannah Jones, she talks about reframing that history. Like, wait a minute, there was a time, and I was definitely one of those Black folks who felt like, man, forget this place, you know what I'm saying? And, dog us out, whatever the case. But she's making a good point. Her argument is that as Black people, we need to start reclaiming America as ours, because our ancestors built this. We need to start reclaiming it
That's
and saying,
right.
"Look, this is even though we know our ancestors, was in Africa, we understand that. But just saying in terms of, so we don't feel like we just here and we don't have a culture. You know what I'm saying? We don't have this and all of those types of things. It's like, no, that's a lie. Yes, we do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? A
Yeah.
lot of the culture that you see in America comes from Black people. And that's
That's right.
keeping it real, you know?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And we have to step up to the plate,
Hmm.
and we have to make this accessible. We have to admit it. And I believe that once we start to open up the realities of what Africans brought to civilization, you will see reading rates go up. But you
Mm.
can't, knock a kid for, being honest that I don't like peas. They don't like them. You can't make them eat it. It's not going to happen. Your parents will say you have to try it first. And if you try it first, and you don't like it, then you don't have to eat it, correct? That's pretty much the rule of thumb at the eating table. Well, the same can be said for reading. You don't like it, you have to try it. Now, the goal of parents is to not keep serving peas. Is that you're going to offer the child something else to eat. Now, if that's all you have to eat are peas, then you're going to explain to the kid why that's just all you have to eat. Same thing with the books. So one could say, well, these are all the books that I have access to. I can't get to the library, or whatever the case is. But at some point, children need to be made aware that such literacy is available, literature is available. And I believe at that point, it will begin to get parents involved, because parents, they don't want to read that stuff to their children no more than the children want to read it. So if a child isn't reading, it's only because the parent isn't reading. And you have to ask the same question, well, why aren't the parents reading? So we can have books that I have my book, Curly Hair Adventures, and all this cool stuff with these pictures and diversity. But that's not always on the pulse of, like, real people with children who don't like to read. Like, I don't, if you don't like my hair, you might not like Curly Hair Adventures if you don't like hair. So it's so many twists and turns when it comes to literacy. But like food, there's an answer. So the same can be said when it comes to books and when it comes to writing. There is an answer.
That's right. That's right. And really what you're saying too is that we have to introduce our children to many different options so they can find what it is that they like. Because that's
Yeah,
what's going to help. It's like it's pretty much like bait, right? It's like, okay, what is it that's going to draw them in? So just like you
right.
said, you may have
Yeah,
that.
because Yeah, not saying I don't like to read. I would say from now I don't have a background in I'm not a clinician or a therapist or by license or anything, but I do have 14 years of experience working as an outreach worker, and also I was a mother. I was a teen mom, and so we also know that the whole "I don't like this." Some of that is what we call attention-seeking behaviors. So a child saying that they don't like something is really they're trying to get your attention to something else. Some people might call it like a wall of defense or throw these things up to kind of get you to push back. And I'm not saying you have to be in a therapeutic mode to intervene, but you definitely have to understand that when kids keep saying, I don't like to read, I don't like to read, they're also saying, I like something else, number one.
Mm,
And then number two, it's definitely most of it. It's an attention seeking behavior. They want your attention for something. So we have to find out what do they want the attention of. But reading has to take place. So it's not an option that you're going to get out of reading, but we're going to have to figure out what is this that I don't like reading. Because
mm,
that's not, I don't want to say it's not normal, but it shouldn't be something that's readily accepted that when kids say, I don't like to read, that we just kind of throw up our hands and say, well, let's see what else he can do. I know I had a kid say that to me once. So I did the soul train. Remember the soul train with the magnets? So I keep magnets on my refrigerator. People always say, you don't have any kids in your house. Why do you have these? Because that's how we learn to spell on Soul Train. We cannot lose this. So when the kids say that I don't like to read, so I'm gonna pull out my magnets on the refrigerator and we gonna Soul Train this out. But we're gonna play trolls, we're gonna name the songs, we're gonna name Justin Timberlake, we're gonna spell it all out. And then what's gonna happen is they're gonna be like, let, let me check that book out. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, we just kind of we got to get them right there when they say they hate it. Let's go for it. I'm not gonna tell you like to read. That's not my job. I'm not about to try to convince you, because kids are very smart. They're not stupid. So the minute they say they don't like to read, do we have some opportunity? That's a moment. That's I want all of your attention. You about to get it. I'm gonna give it all to you. The kids say they don't like to read, they want a piece of you. So I'm about to give it to you.
mm.
And before you know, I guarantee you, I've been doing this my whole life. And I have never walked away from a kid who has I don't care if it was a piece of paper or a magazine. I promise you they'll be like this. That's good enough for me. You ain't even gotta go, just touch it. Just lean over towards the bookshelf. It's all good. I'm happy for that. So I don't like to read is a attention seeking behavior. That's saying I want some attention.
Mm,
And the embarrassment of not being able. We had a deaf guy come in. He was so angry that he could not do sign language and he did not want me to write anything down. And I knew why he didn't want me to write anything down, because he couldn't read. But you know what? I could draw. So I was ready for him, but see, he ain't know I was an outreach worker. So God put me in this salon for a reason. So I just was doing like this happy faces. And he was like, oh, I said, I got you, boo. Don't be afraid if you can't read. We're going to take care of your hair. And then we know you can't read lips because he couldn't follow the directions. But we wasn't going to shame him. But that was a time for him to learn the importance of reading. He was texting on that phone. Everything that he was texting it was not anything that anybody could read. But clearly, he and his friends had developed a whole new language of texting for deaf people who can't read and write. So we couldn't knock it. So I had to meet him where he was. He couldn't understand all the writing and reading, but he knew happy faces, he knew sad faces, he knew thumbs up, he knew thumbs down. And we'll get to the reading later. That wasn't the time. But by the time he left and it was time to write down how much it cost, we had him write how much you think it's worth. Now he was what? He
mm.
was writing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God.
We let him determine the cost of his hairstyle. And everyone could argue, what if he would have said freedom? We would have honored that. But we needed to let that young man know that we knew he could read and he could write. He couldn't read and write as good as us, but
Mhm.
he could. And
Mhm.
we had to use this opportunity to meet him where he was. And how much did he say his hairstyle was worth? $55. And without even knowing, that is the cost of his hairstyle. We never gave him a menu or anything. So he came up with that amount on his own, and that's what we charged him.
Wow.
That's what literacy is all about.
Oh my goodness. That was a phenomenal story.
It was phenomenal. Yes.
Oh my goodness, man. And what trips me out is that how you said they came up with their own code to communicate with
Yeah,
each
we were looking up because our hairstylist, we could see everything y'all texted, right? So me and the hairstylist was like, I don't know what the ham sandwiches he, but it wasn't for us. It was something that he had came up with his tribe, so to speak. But we were not in his tribe. But he
other.
wanted this hairstyle, and he wanted to look cool. He had a little leather, kind of like what I had on. But
Okay.
he didn't want people to know that he was deaf. He just wanted to that ain't gonna work, bro. But
And
we couldn't put him on Front Street in front of all of these people in the hair salon. I mean, after all, he was still a brother. Let's not get it twisted, okay?
right, right. Oh
He
my
had a can. He had a can of whoop ass had he went there. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all ain't about to clown on me. But I felt to know. I
right.
respected him to the hilt. But
Yeah.
I wasn't going to make him think that being ill, not literate was okay, and that he can. But
Mhm.
he didn't want to use it. Why? He had his attention seeking behaviors, or he looked good. He was fine. He didn't look deaf. What does a deaf person look like?
Right.
He didn't fit that mold. So he definitely looked like somebody you might have wanted to holler at, but he didn't have us fooled about not one bit.
Wow. And then and you know what is so amazing too about the story is that the connection that you have to your clients just takes me back again, like I said, in terms of that relationship axiology that goes back to Africa. You having that connection,
Yeah,
relationship for you to say, okay, you peeped the scene, and then all the while you sitting up there, you like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna help this brother and uplift him at the same time. I'm not going to try
that's
to
right.
belittle him and embarrass him.
Combat him. No.
None of that.
Mm-mm.
None of that.
No. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just
I'm
makes
like,
me think
okay,
about,
you don't have to.
yeah. Oh, go ahead. No, go finish what you saying. I'm sorry. Oh.
No, I was just saying that is what this hair salon is all about.
Mm,
So there's a joke that I tell people outside on the building. It says the Reverend's Design Team Hair Salon. But when you walk in, I'll just swing my little camera around. We have
yeah.
all we got the little Pan African flag, and so we have all this stuff in here where we
Wow.
want people to feel like they're walking into a place where all are welcome. The RBG flag, it means a lot of things to different people all over the world.
Mhm.
And we want, when they come in, we don't want you to feel like you're coming to a hair salon. We want you to feel like, you know what, I'm coming home. This
Mm.
is a place where I'm about to come. Is it I'm going to learn to love myself, or it's okay to love myself. So it's okay that he couldn't read, and it's okay that he couldn't write, and it's okay that he couldn't do sign language, and it's okay that he couldn't read lips. But what we didn't want him to know that it's okay to carry on like that for 1 second longer.
Exactly.
There is some help for you, but we couldn't say that. Once he saw that we were helping him, oh, he was ready, and he was there. And we said, "Are you coming back?" He was like, "Yes." And we know he'll be back. And so one can say, "Are you taking it too far as a hairstylist? That ain't my role." Now remember, this is called reverence. So we hold people in the highest regard. So
Right.
we're using the salon for a whole nother reason. So
Hmm.
hair is just going to get you in the door.
Hmm.
But once we get you in our door, you know what? You home. And you know how it is at home.
Right.
All are welcome at home.
That's
Everybody's welcome. If you can't follow rules, let the door hit you with a good Lord's switch.
I love it, y'all. Miss LaDosha Wright, y'all. She is my guest here on Real Reading Talk. And y'all hear her, y'all. I mean, she is just dropping nuggets. And then she has just an awesome personality. I mean, it's just, I love it. Just so positive, uplifting. She reminds you of somebody's auntie, you know what I'm saying? You know, mama, however you want to refer to, you know, big sister, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, you know, like, hey, somebody like, look, yo, ride or die, you know, all of that.
I got my leather jacket on, too.
And looking sharp, you know. I know I see you on IG, you have your videos and stuff. I'm like, there she go again. Got her cute little outfit on and beautiful hair. I mean, just a gorgeous woman. And I can tell, and even though this is our first time having, you know, a conversation, a lengthy conversation, but from what I can tell of you, I mean, you just are an awesome person, man. I mean, I just love your
Thank you.
spirit. You know, you are very,
Thank you.
very
Thank
welcome. And so
Yeah, but this is what literacy, that's what literacy is about.
yeah,
All of what you just said. Yes.
yes. And of course, again, segueing into your books. We need to know about the books that you have written and what made you decide to write those books. Please tell everybody the titles of your books and
Okay, so the first book is Curly Hair Adventures, and this is a book is written by me and it's illustrated by a former hairstylist. His name Mr. Larry Tinsley, who is originally from Cleveland, but he has since relocated to Atlanta. So he is a full-time illustrator and an artist. And so this book tells the story of a little girl named Rose. So Rose, she hates her hair. So she's going to go on this rhyming journey of diversity through hair and an introduction to foreign language. So I wrote this book because my goddaughter hated her hair, and I told her the story of how textured hair is on children all over the world of different races and ethnicities. And she thought that my story would be better if it was in the form of a book. So I ended up, writing this book, and I decided to make it rhyme because as a kid, I think a lot of kids, we love Dr. Seuss. And so the rhyming is inspired by Dr. Seuss. And of course, my love of hip hop. So that's the little story behind Curly Hair Adventures. And then my next book is called What They Don't Tell You at the Hair Salon. And this is a self help book. And it does just that. It's everything that they don't tell you at the hair salon. So it's debunking myths. It's kind of like this conversation we're having now about literacy, except it's about hair and it's user friendly. And the gist of the book is that race has nothing to do with hair, number one. Number two, hair care and hairstyling are about three things: the right products, the right tools, and the right techniques. And then number three is giving you a backdrop to the history of African hair care being erased in American history, and contributing to a lot of the tragedies that we're seeing happen in hair care. So that's pretty much the book in a nutshell. And then I also have a free ebook for licensed professionals called the Beauty and Barber Survival Plan. And that book is available for free on my Patreon page, and that's Global Hair Care. And all of the books are at lwrightbooks.com. And Wednesday, I will be launching my own Amazon page. So you can also find the books on Amazon.
congratulations. Oh my goodness, that is so awesome. Oh, and I love it. I love it because especially when, again, like I said, when it comes to authors, still in the Black community, when it comes to Black authors, we're not represented like we should be, you know, in terms of high numbers when it comes to being authors. And that's something right there. When I, you know, learned about your books, I knew about the first two, I didn't know about the last one. And actually, too, what I'm going to do, I would love, well, actually, I could just look it up myself, and I'm going to put those titles of the book in the description, you know, so people
Yes.
can, you know, be able to go and purchase your book, just like I purchased Curly Hair Adventures and giving those books away. Yes, indeed. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then when I found out you was local too, I said, holla, yes, okay. Okay. I was just like,
Yes.
so pumped. I said, oh, yes,
Yeah.
it's
And
on.
can I just interject on your statement about the importance of African Americans writing a
Yeah.
book? To all of you who are listening and watching the podcast, I just want to piggyback off of Sister Seisha's comment about why we need to write. And let me just say this: I know you guys like I don't believe you, but this is so true. Before the pandemic, I traveled all over the United States to sell these books, whoever and wherever they would have me. I would sell the book from prisons to schools to bookstores to street corners, you name it. I have tried to sell this book. And I'm here to tell you, she is correct. There are not enough African Americans out there writing. So I know what you guys are thinking. All of these self-published books, it's nothing compared. You got to think of this on a global perspective. Don't look at it like what's in your neighborhood. Don't look at it like who's following you on social media. Look at your writings from a global perspective. And a global perspective, I cannot tell you how many times I have showed up to various platforms to sell my book as the only African American. So please write your book.
Mm,
Please write. So, Seisha, you are so correct.
thank you. I thank you for saying that. Really, that definitely is something that is we need to hear all of the time. Just like I
Yeah,
remember listening to a TED talk. This brother, I think his name was Ty Allen, and he talked about that. And he was saying how if your child saw, of course, LeBron James walking down the street, they would know who that was, right? Or Will Smith. And he started naming all these different, actors or athletes. Then he mentioned the author of, I think it was Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And, he was basically saying that, your child wouldn't, more than likely wouldn't know their name or, wouldn't know who that person was. And he was basically saying, in terms of we need to up our authors, we need to pump them
yeah,
up just like we do the athletes, just like we do, the entertainers. If not, in my opinion, I would say even more so. Okay, for real, because again, if you don't have that foundation of reading, you ain't gonna be able to do nothing. You can get by, just like how you said the brother who came, to get his hair done, folks
right,
get
right.
by. But you were just so gracious enough, thank God, that he met you and how you were just uplifting him and also teaching him at the same time and empowering him. But you think about how many of our folks who don't know how to read, and then they get embarrassed by it, or somebody stands
Yeah,
in front of them. And I think
right.
for real, that's what a lot of our kids deal with too. When they know they're in those schools, because I was substitute teaching in CMSD schools, East Cleveland, as well as Cleveland Heights. And a lot of the times, I would ask the kids, how many of you, like to read, or, da da da. And when I find out, when I'm going over their assignments and I'll have certain kids, read, especially the ones who said they didn't like to read, I noticed they couldn't. And
Yeah,
that's a big part of it. A lot of times if somebody, they don't want to do something, it's because they don't know how to do it. You know,
yeah, yeah. I try to capture it in the hair salon as well. Like when people come to visit us here at the salon, we have them fill out like a little form. And
okay.
the reason why I have them fill out the form, number one, is I kind of want them to calm down and relax and get a feel that their visit is going to be different. That's one. But number two, I am looking for who can read and who can read and who can write. And so that's going to allow me to help them in a different way because a lot of hairstyling and requires a person to be able to read in order to use the hair care products. And most people don't. They well, people don't read the instructions at our hair salon. We don't say that because we understand that some people can't read the instructions.
That's
And so it's our job as cosmetologists to capture who those people are because if you're functioning and you don't have the ability to read and write properly and you're having problems with your hair, a lot of that is because you're not able to read those directions and follow them to maximize your investment. So we need to find out who can read and who can write so that we can help them when it comes to how to follow these instructions. So with that being said, once we realize who can and who can't, and we have brochures with pictures that we can write number one and two and three to help those people who can't read and write, you know, be able to follow instructions so that they can look good. Because when they look good, they feel better. When they feel better, they'll take that initiative to go to school. And people will argue, well, what they doing in the hair salon if they can't afford to do this and do that? That ain't the point. You know, the point is we're trying to get them to that next level. So coming to a hair salon, that might be the biggest treat that they have. We want them to know that there are bigger treats when you get more of what literacy, when you read a
Hmm.
little bit more. And so then they began, you'll be surprised how many people have come in here as, you know, clerks and, you know, secretaries, and now they're scholars. I'm not even exaggerating. They're parents, they're married, and you just be surprised. I can't even begin. I don't blast it on social media
Mhm.
because I like to live it, but this is why I'm here doing it, because it really is rewarding to see all of this unfold. I've people who now write their own books, who have their own businesses, who 10, 20 years ago they couldn't read.
Hmm.
Seriously.
Wow. And you know the genius part about that. I mean, because this is the first I've never experienced that. I'm like, wow, that for you to have that, I guess the form for a person to be able to fill out, before they get their hair done. And then also too, you're able to find out if a person is struggling, with reading. That right there that's genius.
Because
And
we see
again,
that this is why, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for cutting you off,
no, it's
but
no
that's why a lot of the problems with their hair, you
problem.
know, you can see it's like, well, why did you do that? And they'll say, oh, well, I just did it. Did you read the directions? No. They're not reading the directions because they think that everything you use gel the same way. They're not reading the directions because a lot of them they can't read. And we think that's funny and we've taken that for granted. But if they could, they would. And so once we tell them you have to read the directions because every company has their own rules of instructions, and they're like,
Mm,
oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, Eco Gel doesn't want you to use their gel the same way Paul Mitchell
mm,
doesn't want you to use their gel the same way Talia Wajid doesn't want you to use their gel the same way Ultra Sheen. But
mm,
if you're not reading, now you do have a sect of people who just cookie cut, but then that's cookie cutting. But when you start to see, and this is what happened when I was an outreach worker, that's how I became a cosmetologist, was because we saw so much abuse and neglect. And the abuse and neglect was coming in the form of hair. And so the frustration with hair was the lack of identity, the lack of knowing who they were. Why? Not because their parents wasn't telling them. Your parents can tell you you're black and beautiful all day long. It ain't enough.
thank
You need to read it. You need to see it. You know, you need it all. You need it art. You need it all around you. And
you.
so they're not getting that. And so this is how I ended up opening up the hair salon, because this is where they were coming to get their fix for their self-esteem. But it's flawed because the information in the hair salon and the bulk of them, it's all wrong.
Wow.
It has a slave narrative. You
Mm,
know, don't wash your hair. This is not African history. This is not Black history. That stuff is coming from slavery. But you need a place where you can go to know that, and you need books. So when you say that, because you're not going to find that in Cosmopolitan, you're not going to find that in Essence, you're not going to find that in Vogue, or all the fashion magazines. No. So we replaced all of those magazines with this one. So we don't have those magazines in here. The magazines we do have, they are of a Pan African, backdrop, so to speak, because that's what this salon is about, because we need to erase all of that. We got to, as Ray Higgins would say, we have to deactivate that Willie Lynch chip.
yes, definitely. And you are just, I mean, and to me, it's just a reminder of how in the Black community, how the salons, the barbershops are the staples of our community. That's where our folks, we can come and, oh, it's good. We can come as that, let our hair down, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And just
Right.
be real and be able to be relaxed and comfortable. And I love
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. And then how you just got the
That's it.
education piece. You know what I'm saying? That component, right? I mean, you obviously you are intentional. That's that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it. This is what I'm getting from you is that you are
Yeah.
intentional
Yeah,
about.
and they don't know that when they come in here. They read the Google reviews and the people are writing, oh, they're so nice. And LaDosha taught me how to do my hair. Oh, the salon is so nice. And Shalise taught me this. And oh, they're so nice, my hairstyle, my wedding. So this is what they're reading. But when they walk in and they realize that we're going to analyze your scalp and your hair under a microscope.
Mm,
We're going to give you Black history before we even touch it. We're going to listen to you. Before we even touch your hair, you're going to tell us everything. Why? Because we are the greatest storytellers. But
yes.
who wants to listen to your hair story? We do.
Mm,
We want to hear your hair story before we even touch your hair. And some people babble on for 30 minutes. And you know what we do? We listen.
wow.
We listen for 30 minutes. Some people, we have tissue right here at the front desk, not because it's a pandemic, but because people are broken from just being traumatized about their hair, not just from their home, but from a society who has been teaching. And you say, why do you don't want to read? Who wants to read a book that's calling your hair nappy? Who wants to read a book that's describing your hair as kinky or
Mm,
difficult to manage? Nobody wants to read that. No, you can't knock a person. No kid wants to read the story of a tightly coiled hair. Can it say beautifully brown? Can we give some more adjectives to that? So this stuff is very, very, very real, and
mm,
so we have to address that. So these are segues into literacy because now people are starting to realize what's missing, and they do get fired up enough to do something like join the PTA and say, "Hey, we got these kids when they come out of swimming, our children need to have time to braid their hair down and stuff like that." But you have to be literate to fight for your children's right in school. But nobody talks about that. But a hair salon, we can do that.
wow. And this is crazy, right? I was literally talking to my daughter earlier about how come I did not, when I was at Shaker, my freshman year, sophomore year, and they had swimming and you had to take swimming. I found every way possible to get out of swimming because I didn't want my hair to get messy. Because I'm a convert to Islam. So I didn't, I wasn't, when I was younger, I wasn't Muslim. So I had my hair out and everything. So, but when I was at Shaker, we had to take our swimming lessons. I found every way possible because I was afraid my hair was going to poof, and I'll be going through the, hallways looking poofy. And, you know what I'm saying? Of course,
Mhm.
anybody who's aware of, the Shaker Heights demographic, back in the, late 80s, early 90s, and I'm probably sure it's like that even still to this day, where you still had majority white kids in the school. So I already knew as a young person, I was already feeling some kind of way about like, okay, oh my God, my hair is going to be poofy. So I'm not going to get into swimming. I also was letting my daughter know, I said, that's a big part of the reason why our Black children will
Yeah.
not get into swimming, in particular our Black girls, is because of what you just said in terms of that whole hair care piece,
Right.
you know.
Right. And if the parents aren't literate to know the process, that, leaving the paper trail, the document, and all this to have these laws and these rules and regulations changed, they can't do anything about it. You can't complain. You have to write it down.
Mm,
But the only way we can do that is we have to find, where are they? Where are they at in their understanding of the power of reading and writing? And the hair salon and the barber shop, to me, is probably next to a doctor's visit and the check cashing center, maybe a grocery store.
mm,
But I'm going to say the hair salon, those places are the top 5 places to really intervene when it comes to promoting literacy, and getting people to read. Because it's user friendly, it's non offensive, it doesn't stick out. And you could just start with, like I said, a happy face. That happy
mm,
face was the beginning to encouraging him to write. Now, where will it go from there? I don't know. I don't teach sign language. I'm not a literacy specialist, but I am a human. I do love people, and I do know what it feels like to be frustrated about anything.
Yep.
And so, but if we can use our business spaces for something other than or in addition to, we should do it. It's not hurting my bottom line. I'm not able to meet my productivity. I'm not able to not sell my retail, because I'm helping promote literacy. It is ingrained in the culture of the Revers Design team. When people come here to work, this is why they want to work at this salon. Just like people will pick a company to work for because they have certain benefits, certain features. So this hair salon is attracting those cosmetologists who want to use their beautification skills to do something more than, hair. And
Mm.
it just so happens that Black history, literacy, self esteem, spirituality, these are what attracting these types of, workers and colleagues. I don't like to call them employees, but, my colleagues. So we see people, with all different types, even the hijab, when they come in and
Mhm.
they have issues that they
Mhm.
have to be seen. We have a male coordinator. So he has to leave the salon so that we can service them. And they're like, wow, that's not gonna hurt. He's not, we have an answering machine. It's not gonna hurt us to let our calls roll over for a couple of hours so we can service our sister, and they could teach us the proper way to greet and to say goodbye and inshallah. It's not going to hurt us. It's not going to hurt us at all to give them some tips on how to wear this so their hair doesn't rub out. And so this is a wonderful way to do
Wow, Miss LaDosha, you are just, I'm really, I just can't say it enough, man. I mean, awesome, phenomenal. I mean, just your aspect in terms of just always trying to be a teacher. I love that. And then also too, definitely having us keep that connection to our African roots. That right there is just
Oh
key
yes,
and unapologetic.
yeah, yeah.
Unapologetic.
We shouldn't be. Yeah, unapologetically African. I changed my whole every day, everything. I'm something African because it's a conversation piece. Everybody wants to know who's Aset. Everybody wants to know what's the I of why. I
Yeah.
like to get it wrong so people can go and figure it out and come back and say, I read this. Did you know this? Did you know that? No, I
Mhm.
don't know everything, but I sure look like I do. But it's nice to let that guard down and say looks can be deceiving. I'm just the hairstylist, and so it welcomes that type of a conversation, and it takes a life of its own.
Wow. And speaking of, here we go again with our segue. I got a couple more questions for you because I know,
Okay.
you have things that you got to take care of, but I got these last two questions I want to ask you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
First, I would like to know your decision in terms of you deciding to start your library that I read about and I saw the video about. I would love for you first to tell everybody about the library because I wanted you to introduce it. Because when I saw the video, I was just like, I'm sitting there like, are you serious? I'm just like, okay. And then, you breaking down, you know what I'm saying, in terms of the bulk of our ancestors who were enslaved and how majority of them were taken from West Africa. And by the way, where a lot of them were literate, you know what I'm saying? It was like, because of the fact of just coming from, African society and how literacy has always been high on the value ladder of the African. So I would like to know, when did you come up with this concept? And first tell everybody about the library.
So the name of the library is called the Wright Library, and so the Wright Library is deliberately to benefit the education of cosmetology to the students residing in Senegambia. Senegambia would be Gambia and Senegal, and so the library is located inside of the Gay and Jural Skills Academy. So it's the Wright Library of the Gay and Jural Skills Academy. The Wright Library of the Gay and Joy Skills Academy was actually only able to come into full fruition in divine order through Mr. Felton Thomas and Dr. Sadie Winlock of the Cleveland Public Library and Kaz Amanende of the Black Dot Cultural Center located in Lithonia, Georgia. And so what had happened was
Huh?
I decided to return the favor to Fatou Gay, who's the founder of the Gay and Girl Skills Academy.
Mhm.
She invited me to the Gambia last year to write the cosmetology curriculum for Gambia and Senegal. And so, to raise the money to go over there, I decided what better way to get money to a school than through a library. I mean, everybody wants children to have books. And cosmetology needs that curriculum that I wrote for those two countries. It starts off with African history, go figure. And so we needed to have a library. So my customer, who is in charge of the diversity and inclusion of the Cleveland Public Library, I shared this idea with her, and she was just moved to tears, and she was like, "You will have this library." So she had me do a presentation to Mr. Felton Thomas, who was like, without a doubt, you will have this library. So they outfitted the library with all the books. And then I traveled to Lithonia, Georgia, and we met this guy, Cass at the Black Dot Cultural Center, and he had his own private collection of books that were only written by African American scholars.
Mm,
So he allowed us to go through his private collection, and we were able to get periodicals, magazines, comic books,
mm,
strictly. I mean, this is an exclusive collection, and no money. And we packed these books up, and we took them to Africa. And then we had Dr. Lethargus Goggins III, and he also is an educator, and he donated all of the posters to go in there. The Indiana Historical Society, and then the customers and Apple Computers, they donated computers to go inside the library. So it is a fully functioning library, complete with internet activities. We're actually doing an essay writing contest featuring Spears of the Masi with the Kofi Pi research team. They are out of Chicago, Mississippi, New York, and Cleveland. So, I mean, not Cleveland. I forgot the other place. So, yeah, so that's where they are from. And so the library is it's fully functioning. People travel from across. This is before the pandemic. All types of foreign dignitaries. We had someone come in from Australia. Now other cosmetology schools are like, well,
hello,
maybe
hello.
we should have a library too. So this is the first on the entire planet. No other cosmetology school on the planet has its very own fully functioning library. Not just Milady's Book of Cosmetology, but I'm talking about we have history books, we have books on health and nutrition, books on parenting. It's a catalog. It's a fully functioning library. You can check the books out and bring the books back.
Y'all see why I have Miss LaDosha on my show. I'm just saying. I mean, come on. That right there is just awesome to hear. Then you the first, I mean, trendsetter. I mean, it's like now folks they're gonna be looking at
Yeah,
your library. This is from your brainchild that you developed in the motherland. I mean, that is just
yeah, and they could see all of this stuff on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, LaDosha Wright, you'll
Mhm.
see the library. You'll see a lot of stuff that we did in Africa. And we were also the first to go online and teach cosmetology online, the first on the planet during the pandemic. It wasn't China, no, it was Africa. It was
Hmm.
in West Africa. We were the first because we had other people from other countries trying to get it on our class, but we wasn't having that. You
Oh,
know what I'm saying? We was like, no, yeah,
I thought
and at one time, not yet. No, it was private. So yeah, we were the first, and yeah, so yeah, Africa is on. People might be sleeping on West Africa for real, for real.
well,
Egypt is good. I ain't gonna
you
knock the other
waking us
parts.
up.
Nothing against. Morocco, none against Tanzania. I'm just saying, no, West Africa, I ain't knocking Liberia,
And the thing is, just like you said, I mean, that is where a majority of our enslaved Africans, were put into bondage, So, I
Yeah,
mean, what better way to go back and say, now I'm going to go back and set up a library, for our people. And
yeah. When we opened it up, the library, you could. I mean, I don't know. People be like, I'm in the spirits and stuff. You don't have to be, because when you go to Africa, I'm telling you, the spirit is this. The minute you get off that plane,
mm,
you know. I mean, it's one thing to keep saying I'm black and I'm proud.
yeah,
I'm an African American. I'm
right.
from Shaker Heights. I'm from Cleveland. I'm
Mhm,
a descendant of slavery.
mhm,
I'm,
mhm,
Marcus Garvey. I get Malcolm X.
right,
I'm
right,
telling you. But when you go to Africa, I promise you, you will know everything that you have been raised, your language, your dress, everything you ever thought. You just
mhm,
wonder anything that's inside your soul that you just never wanted to, you never could even articulate, or maybe was even afraid. When you step off that plane in Africa, all of your answers, they would just come. Your answer, you can feel it.
mm,
It's not about kissing the ground,
mhm,
consecrating, all of that, jumping in the water, purifying you. It's beyond any of that. So it's something about going home to Africa. If anybody could go in any capacity, please. And I never, never, ever, ever thought I could. I would never dream I would. I dreamed of going to Africa, but I didn't think it would ever happen.
mm. Well, I definitely, that's one of my intentions. I said, after I make pilgrimage to Mecca, that's one of my, goals that I have. And I said, after that, I want to, stay there and then go to Africa. Definitely Ghana, gotta
Yeah.
go see the slave castles, you
Yeah,
know.
you should see them. When we were in Gambia, we traveled to Janjanburg. This is where they took Kunta Kinte from. They have an island. It's Kunta Kinte Island. So they took him from an island, then to Janjanburg, then to the Americas. Oh man, see some countries in West Africa, they're still in the story. That's a whole nother conversation.
Mhm.
But to start that, to see those dungeons, man, I'm telling you, we cried, we cried. It was like you didn't think you was gonna cry.
Yeah.
It's one thing to see those. I've been to a lot of museums and I've seen a lot of artifacts from slavery and all this. But when you go to these slave dungeons where it originally, I'm not saying nothing against Ghana and the Gold Coast and all that, but I'm telling you, when you see it from where Kunta Kinte
Mhm.
came from, the boat, and to get in that water, get in that water, get in that. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get in the boat. And the other thing is when the children, because they don't teach slavery in Africa either. So this was these students first. They knew about Kunta Kinte. They definitely knew about, but the whole how do we leave there and then come back? They didn't quite get that. So on our way to Janjambur, I'm telling you, we was loud. We was like, we was ready to go because it was like we was gonna go to a museum. We had been to the museums, it was just gonna be a museum visit. Let me tell you, when we got to them slave, I'm talking about it was not a dry eye, and they promised us, they hugged us, and they said we did not sell you. We did not. So when you hear the slave trade story as told by Africans compared to the American scholars and your European scholars and all your other scholars from every part of the world but Africa, it's a whole different story. And
Mhm.
it's like being kidnapped and you living with your kidnappers and you go home and your family saying, come home. We didn't, and we like, nah, we going back to our captors. Better yet, we gotta go back because America just ain't gonna let you go. You got to, you have to repatriate. You can't just
Yeah.
stay. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Right.
we
Mm.
still enslaved. Y'all can
Listen.
understand this now, okay? Don't
Mm.
get it twisted. It ain't
Mm.
that kind. So it's deep. So
Mm,
when you go over there and they're telling you because you're crying. I mean, and then that was just the second stop. So now you got to get on the boat and go to where they took him from. Kunta Kinte, he was no chump. So when you hear the president number 45 talk about people who get caught in the war, like the Vietnam War, and
mhm,
he said people who, like he talked about Senator McKay and
mhm,
saying that as far as he's concerned, he's no hero because he was captured. I'm gonna tell you something right now. That's the craziest stuff. You don't even listen to any type of rhetoric like that. But when you see where Kunta Kinte, how they had to trap and catch him, listen here, that story on Roots ain't got nothing when you go to this island and you see what great lengths these conquistadors they went through to take our ancestors off of this island. The boat that we had to sit in to get over there. I mean, I was sick physically. I was sick. I'm still keeping in touch with the people who live there because I was just too emotional. I had literally had to lay down on the ground because it was just too much. Um, and it's just that deep when you go over there for me. And I know other people who've been to Ghana and other parts of other slave dungeons, and they too have expressed having the same type of emotional just trauma. And it's not something that you're making up in your mind.
mhm.
You when you get on there and you see this, it's just and everybody, it was like when they came back, it was like somber. I mean, everybody's expressions, it was like um and maybe when I go back I'll be able to go, but it was just too much.
That's what I've heard. I remember actually Dr. Joy DeGruy talking about that. She's I know you're familiar
Oh
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I
Oh
lived,
yeah.
I lived,
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah. I swear by post. I almost lost my job messing around with post traumatic slave disorder.
Man, come on. That right there
Yeah,
must read,
she
y'all.
the best.
Please,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
real.
Rest up to yes, yeah. She
Yeah,
is
but she
true, but
definitely
yeah,
talked about that. Yeah,
yeah.
that
Post traumatic slave disorder is not that is not a joke.
no,
That's very real.
it's very real. It's very real.
Yeah,
And I highly, highly recommend that people pick up that book, please. Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. And she's talking about healing. She's talking about things that we experience as Black folks, which goes back and links to slavery, but she's also talking about us healing. And that's what I love about
yeah,
that book as well. Just like here, what we're doing here on the Real Reading Talk podcast. It's not just us talking about the issues that we have in the Black community when it comes to literacy, but we're also talking about solutions. We need to get back to developing that culture of literacy in the Black community that links back to our African ancestors. Just like John Henrik Clark said, and he said, when you talk about history when it comes to Black people, don't start it with slavery. He said, you start with
mm-mm.
Africa, because when you start with slavery, then everything else seems like progress.
That's right.
That's why you
Ashe.
have to start with our African ancestors and talking about the
Yeah,
libraries of Timbuktu, talking about how our people were literate storytellers, like you talk about so much, when you were talking. That is who we are, the griots, that
yeah,
person in the village, and giving those stories, giving our young people lessons, so
yes,
they know how to behave and what things that they should be doing, honoring our elders and taking care of your neighbor and all of those things, and the things that we should stay away from. These are things that's a part of our history. And
right. Yeah. And our history is world history.
that's
Like you
right.
said, everybody else's history is borrowed from African history of all the different parts of Africa. Remember, that was as Dr. Hiawatha coming in and say, he said they took that show on the road.
Mm,
Once they left and they started to be people of the planet. So everything that you see, no matter where you are or any living in any parts of the world, you have to understand our contribution to the civilization of the entire planet. We are mothers, birthed this entire planet. So we have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed about. We surely don't want to downplay it, but we can't do it. We can't continue it if we don't, be literate. And it's many, many facets and combine it. with reading and action. So the library is definitely a culmination of all of that, but it is truly and surely birthed, from our ancestors. It was the ancestors who said, you know, you got to have a library. I would, it just came to me
Mm,
via, my ancestors. And this is what, like you said, this is what we do. I'm not doing anything new. I'm just carrying forth the legacy in modern day time. This is what Queen Hepzibah did.
mm.
This is what, Queen Ty did. This is what Imhotep did. All these great people, they did these things.
That's right. Mic drop, y'all. That's what's up. Miss LaDosha Wright. And Miss
Thank you.
LaDosha Wright, I want you to please tell everybody how they can get in connection with you, give your social media links, and also please tell everybody about your the name of your salon, the name of your books as well, and mention again about the Wright Library.
Okay, so again, thank you guys so much. My name is LaDosha Wright. I am located here in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, at the Revers Design Team Hair Salon. If you Google LaDosha Wright, then you will find all of the social media handles from Facebook to Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat. I said you can find everything on there except my baby daddy. Okay, so you can Google the LaDosha Wright and everything will pop up. The books again are available at lwrightbooks.com, and they are also available via my Amazon store at LaDosha Wright. And then the library is the Wright Library, and it's located inside the Gay and Jural Skills Academy. And she too is on all the social media platforms. The school you can find it on all the social media platforms. And if you want to have me as a speaker on your show or talk to your students or whatever, you can contact area code 216-904-9821. And Mr. Shan Smith is my brother, aka my manager. And so he does all of my bookings for me, and he will be so glad to take your phone call or text message first and set that up. So that's how you can reach out to me.
I love it. And I want to give a shout out to two people. First, your brother Shan. He is awesome. And he is, just I could just tell
The
just in
best
our
big brother
interaction.
ever.
He is, it's like, okay, I can tell he seemed like a down-to-earth person again, fun person, all of that. So shout out to him.
Role model,
Yeah.
role model.
Hey, that's what's up. And I want to also give a shout out to someone I know Tiara.
Ah, what a surprise.
Yes, yes, yes. She told me about you when we were working at together at one of the Montessori schools. And she was telling me, about you, and she was like, "Oh man, you've done her hair and all of that, and just saying how awesome you are and the different things you're doing in the community." I was like, "Oh wow!" So that was like my first, me getting to know about Miss LaDosha Wright. So
Oh, well, thank you so
yes.
much. Yeah, Tiara is phenomenal.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. So again, I want to say thank you. I appreciate you for being a guest on the Real Reading Talk podcast. And I want everybody to please, please remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Thank you.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much, sis.